Welcome everybody to our 6 o'clock weekly Zoom call that we're doing here for Greater Cleveland RIA. We're going from once a month to every week to keep everybody updated during this time. And so there's a little bit of confusion today because we had a glitch in our electronic system, because normally we just have to show up at the Holiday Inn, and when we show up at the Holiday Inn, we know where to go and we're all there and it works out well. Well, this time we were setting up this type of meeting, and what happened instead was probably me, being the technological genius that I am, set up a webinar version for 5 o'clock that sent out a link to everybody, and then I canceled it. So a lot of people have dead links, and my phone's blowing up over here on the other side for the dead links that we have going on. So at any rate, I'm going to turn this over to Erin real quick, and she's going to kick this meeting off.
Hey guys, I'm super pumped to have everybody here tonight. My name's Erin, as he said, investor, wholesaler, I'm a realtor. I'm the chair of the Greater Cleveland RIA, and tonight I'm your host. So we're pumped to talk about tonight. As Rob had said, we're going to talk about money, how to make money, how to get funding in this crazy time. And every week, something we're going to do is keep you updated on, the virus, COVID, and its effect that it's having in real estate and any changes, because its actual effect in real estate is not something that they're covering on the news. RIA is normally all about education and success and networking, and we're not going to let this virus get us down. And we hope it doesn't stop you from being successful either. So a couple of things we'd like you to do is to join our Facebook group, which is CORE, C-O-R-E, stands for Cleveland, Ohio Real Estate. Join that Facebook group. We're going to post deals there. You can ask questions there. Keep informed. Everything can happen right from there. Another thing is make sure you mark your calendars for this. Every week at 6 p.m. on Tuesdays, we're going to be doing this. Again, always keeping you up to date on everything that's going on with this virus and being quarantined, and I'm sure for everybody it's a nice little break seeing other faces. But make sure you do that. We're going to have our gold sponsors are always going to be joining us on Tuesdays to lend their expert advice. We're also going to be bringing in other experts in real estate investing like we normally would at our networking event. So next week, for instance, we've got Randy Hughes, who is the land trust guy. He's going to come speak to you, not sell you anything, but speak to you about that, which is really vital information that most of us don't know too much about. So make sure you stay with us and join us every Tuesday for that. Just a couple of housekeeping things that I wanted to go over for those of you who don't know. If you'd like to change your name, you can click on 3 little dots and put your phone number there, your company name there, especially for our gold sponsors, so that people know who you are, where you're from, and how they can contact you. After I'm done passing this over to Rob, we're going to wrap everything up with some Q&A. So make sure you can click the chat and ask your questions throughout this entire webinar. And we'll answer them as we go, but the ones we can't get to, we'll have a little time set aside at the end to answer all of your questions. And then last but not least, like any other event that we have, we're going to do some deals, buy, sell, trade. We're going to wrap it up with that. So get your deals ready, because we still are all here to make money. We're still here to invest and buy, and if you want to do that. So I'm going to pass it over to Rob, the house guy, who is going to talk to you all about money.
All right. Thanks so much, Erin. Appreciate that. Hey, as she said earlier, anything that we want to put on here, there's a little chat box where you can ask the questions and so forth that you want to have answered, as well as some of you, I may be off on this, but I believe you can put your telephone number at the bottom of the screen right here. So you can change your name if you hover over when you're in the participants area there. Some of you may be able to put that on there. Not real sure, not real techie. Clearly, like I said before, that we can still get in touch with one another. So as we're talking about the second Tuesdays of the month, how we're going to have a normal meeting that's going to be actually put on with a topic will be land trust next month. This is going to be more of a free-for-all meeting that we're going to talk about things that are hitting us right now in our market and things that are changing literally day to day. Because from last week when we were on here, we were talking all about money and everything was going on with the private lending. Our speaker on here, come Monday, I guess they closed their doors to lending. So that's no slam to them, no disrespect. Things change, but they're going to be doing acquisitions now, from what I understand, and doing some more stuff with that, and maybe regrouping here in a few months to start lending again. So that's how quickly things are changing. A lot of the money is slowing down. So let's start out with that, talking about funding of deals. Has anyone else had any deals fall out here recently that were going to be funded and now they're starting to slow down and now they're trying to find money for them?
I have.
And you have. So what happened with one of your deals that you have going, if you don't mind sharing?
So I had a deal at title, and the buyer wasn't able to get the funding anymore because of the new things that went into effect with the credit scores. He had just passed that mark, and so that got dropped. And now I know that I have a property in Euclid that I'm interested in buying myself right now, and trying to find the lending for that is a little bit more difficult. I had 4 deals about to go to title, and my lender, who is actually part of this, James with North Coast Financial Group, he was going to lend on all 4 of them, and his backing had changed and we can only fund on 1. So 3 of those deals had to fall through. Luckily, the one we were able to find something else for, but it's definitely creating an issue finding, your normal lenders just aren't able to do what they used to do. And even if it is private money.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is the problem with that is because we're also intertwined with one another in this group that, by Aaron having a deal that's falling apart like that and having 4 sold, maybe now 1 sold, that's slowing everything down over there. So it's slowing down if she was going to come buy something over here from me, let's say, or maybe I was going to buy something from Gary. Whatever it is, it all starts just chain reacting. So a couple of the things that I would say, advice in this day and time that we can go about with getting things done a little bit smoothly. If you're a newbie and you're just starting out and you're just trying to get your foot in the door and do your first rehab or your first purchase, try aligning yourself with a seasoned investor, someone that's a known to all these hard money lenders, because that's going to fast track your deal a lot more by having a familiar face in front of them when it comes to underwriting. Because that's really, they're kind of afraid right now to hang their hat on an unknown or bet on the racehorse that's ever been on the track. However, there's still plenty of opportunity that you can jump on board and you can still be a part of the deal and still make money and get things done. Another thing that we're doing is also dealing with doing some owner financing. Like right now, as we speak, I'm signing a deal on DocuSign, which is something else I suggest we'll talk about in a second that I think everybody should be using at this junction in life. But doing a subject to deal where we're going to take a property over and pay a few $1,000s out of pocket, but then leave the existing financing in place and not have to redo it right away. Because anytime that you're relying on a third party like that, you're subject to things blowing up and having problems. So that's another issue there. Now, the reason for the owner financing that might work well, that you cannot just get owner financing from the seller, but a lot of times from lenders as well, as long as you have all parties cooperating. I'm going to bring on David Streeter here and ask him a question real quick. In dealing with foreclosures right now, what are you seeing in the foreclosure market out there? Are things coming to a grinding halt, or are they still marching forward, or lenders you see wanting to negotiate more? What are you seeing?
Well, I know the courts are really hearing any of the hearings, so that's pretty much, just like evictions, those have been stayed and delayed and postponed. I actually have one foreclosure with an HOA, and they changed their tune this week and are now talking about settlement when 2 weeks ago they weren't. They had a real hard line. Now they came to us and said, make an offer. So I think they're loosening up a little bit, just trying to resolve these off their books if they can.
All good stuff. So, yeah, I would definitely suggest if someone does have a situation, I know we're in the middle of some, a couple short sales right now, and that's exactly, it's not that I'm happy this is going on, but it definitely has helped because we were probably a couple weeks away from the sheriff's sale, and it was a smaller local bank, and they were 100% ready just to let it go to sale and take their chances. And now they're actually talking to us because who knows how long it's going to be. And plus, they don't want that toxic asset on their books when it's all done. I mean, their balance sheet's probably going to be ugly enough. I'm coming through all of this stuff. As far as coming off of the funding here for a minute, and let's jump onto the evictions. I've heard a few things. I think some of it's BS. I've had one guy that has literally in the thousands of units saying that he was, almost at 100% payment for this month, that he was rocking at about 90, 95, 98%, I believe is what it was, people have paid. And I found that pretty hard to believe. Is anyone else that has a large portfolio out there, how is it looking on payments coming in? I know, Angelo, you run some management stuff. Do you have any idea on that end of it, how the payments going from some of these people?
Most of the people aren't giving us issues. I think next month will be more of a problem. I think people had saved or final paychecks coming in, both commercial and residential. We've had a few people, make ridiculous comments, but for the most part, I think the majority of people are still paying. A couple people are doing, a half or 75%, paying a little bit more in the next couple of weeks. I mean, nowhere near 95% coming in yet, but I haven't seen a big difference yet.
Not yet, no. I know one of the suggestions we talked about a couple weeks ago on here, there was someone that had a 32 unit that had all the tenants banding together and talking about just not paying. They're just not going to pay. And clearly this individual still has a mortgage payment due. And I think that's where a lot of the problems are running. And the government shuts down a portion of the foreclosures, a portion of the mortgages, and then other ones are still due. It's going to create a little bit of reasonable havoc there, but I don't, clearly have any control over that. And so anyhow, this individual's worried about making their payment. But quite honestly, let's say those people are paying $500 a month that are living in those units. So it's going to be about $16,000 a month. If that individual would just forgive those payments for 2 months and say 2 months, no payments, but you're going to start again in June at $600 a month instead of $500 a month, that's going to add about $38,000 a year to the net operating income. So to give up 32 grand to get 38,000 net operating income, that could increase that building's value by $350,000 to $380,000 on a refinance or a sale at the end of that. So it's not a terrible idea as long as you do it all correctly and you terminate the old lease. Is Mike Ricky on here anywhere?
Yep.
Somewheres. Mike?
I think you need to unmute him though.
Can you unmute Mike Ricky?
Yep.
Hey, there I am. Can you hear me?
There you are. So Mike, if someone were to go ahead and try to do a forbearance agreement with a tenant, basically, where the tenant was going to stop paying for a couple of months, can you walk through the structuring process of how they should do that?
Well, obviously, we've had several clients of ours come to us with this particular issue, whether it be residential or commercial. As far as whether or not you want to work with that tenant, it's a choice that landlord has to make themselves because they know the tenants better than we do. But any agreement that you get obviously has to be in writing to make sure it's a proper addendum that's done correctly and executed correctly. I do want to, a couple comments to make. You had made reference to the rent strike that people were doing, where it's a collective action of many people, many tenants not paying rent. I personally have not heard of that much locally. I mean, there's a lot of talk of it. I think it's more of some of the larger cities, New York, Chicago. But something to be aware of is a great deal of our clients, they're falling on, one side of the fence, either they're just, they're not budging, you pay rent. If not, we're evicting you. Or the other type are, hey, we're going to try to work with the tenants and work with them, through this period. And whichever you decide, I think it would probably be wise to try to work with the tenants if you could, and others may disagree with me. And I'm fine if you don't, but if you do decide not to work with your tenants, be very careful what you say to these tenants, particularly whether it be text or social media. Just recently, one of our clients made national headlines along with another management company here for some of the very strict, comments that he made, essentially pay rent. You can't, you're getting evicted. If you don't have a job, find one. And it was a little bit more cutthroat than that, but just be very careful what you're putting in writing because it has now made national news and they are all over our client now talking to him really bad. So just a word to the wise.
And if you do work out with somebody, make sure it is in writing so that they do not think they have an abatement or no rent due, or that this is an ongoing thing for the rest of their lease at, half off or something like that. Everything needs to be in writing and signed.
Okay, what do you think about, and we can jump over to Mr. Streeter on this one real quick if you want, David. What about trading work for rent? What do you think of that?
Work for rent. I am never a big fan of that one. That seems to always go bad. If you do it, you better document the heck out of it. So, and make it very clear and have the rates and everything. But, you know, I've never been a fan of that because it seems that everyone's always, you know, good and on the same page until they're not. And my experience is the magistrates, like in the Cleveland court, you know, tend to, you know, find in favor of the tenants there. So I would stay around.
I couldn't agree with Dave more. He's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Rob, are you just going to ask every attorney until you get the answer you want?
No. Hold on a second. I'm telling them to dry my car too, real quick. Hey, get that spot. I do not have tenants washing my car. No, I like to bring it up because look, there's all the stuff we talk about publicly. Everybody always talks about the right thing to do with tenants and never trade work and everything. But you know, there's not, especially a Cleveland landlord alive, that's not having some tenant paint one of their other units or something and when they're behind on their rent. I mean, maybe we don't do it so much now, maybe that we've all grown out of that. But for a lot of the new landlords, you know it's done. Because I've had a lot of tenants come to me and tell me, hey, this is what's going on. So I guess I'm just trying to drive that part home real fast. So let's talk about subject to deals for a little bit here, since the money seems to be drying up. And I'm going to go back to Rich Bailey and bring him on in a second if I can. You know what? Before I even go to subject two, let's talk to Rich. If Rich can unmute himself, I want to ask, what's the state of the banking industry right now, Rich? How are we looking? I know we went from like a 580 to a 680 on FHA, and money was drying up. How are we looking now?
So we came down today actually to a 640. A few weeks ago, we went down to a 580, and early last week, we went to a 660 minimum on government loans, and today we went down to a 640. So things are stabilizing. Part of the problem through a couple of webinars I was on today was that the Fed was buying bonds like crazy, thinking they were helping, and they were actually hurting. They were causing covered calls and so on and so forth in the secondary market, and it was just making rates go crazy. And the risk, lenders were shedding risk as much as they can. Like I can't even price out a manufactured home right now. We got a hold on renovation products, and jumbo loans are non-existent unless you go to like a local bank. They're like a big Wells Fargo or Bank of America that can actually fund those and carry them until they can actually sell them because there's no secondary buying them. So anything with risk is out right now. So yeah, it's been kind of rocky, but I still have purchases coming in. There's still multiple offers happening out there.
Well, I know starting out like that's kind of the beginning of the bottleneck is with the feds, that they're not releasing money. I'm probably saying the word wrong, but with the regular traditional banks not releasing the money as well as they should, because now the people on hard money, they can't refinance, they can't sell to somebody that's going to be getting the loans and so
there's
forth.
No liquidity.
Right.
The banks, one of the companies that was on, a big company, said that they had $270 million in reserves a couple weeks ago, and they're down to $78 million for covering covered calls. Sorry, I had a phone call come in because they had the margin calls and so on and so forth, whatever that stuff's called, but is wiping them out financially. So you know, Quicken came out with they won't even lock a loan until they have it approved now at Quicken. We actually just came out just to slow down refinance business, where we won't lock a refinance in until we have an approval and appraisal. Because with that on our part is trying to slow business down. We closed $5 billion in mortgages last month, and we're normally closed around $4 billion, and that's a lot of extra work for people. We're staffed up for $4 billion, not $5 billion. That's a lot of loans. So they're just trying to slow volume down. So a lot of lenders are actually trying to slow volume because 40% or 60% of the households out there could benefit from refinance right now. And we're coming into the busiest purchase season. So everybody's ramped up with the employees on staff to do purchase business, and we're throwing twice as many refinances in the middle of it. So rates are artificially higher because they're trying to slow business down. You know, it's just a bottleneck. So there's a lot more turmoil than just what was happening in the secondary. It's a volume problem also.
Well, clearly, I'm not, on the Fed or anything, but to me, it doesn't make sense. If you're fast tracking a bunch of refinances, how is that really going to help the economy overall? To take money that's out there at 5% and put it out at 4%, it's not transferring a house. It's not moving things on the road. Someone that sells a home gets to buy another house, and maybe they're going to buy a fixer-upper, do some more stuff to it. So I think that it's really just promoting hoarding money by doing people on rate and term refis. What do you think?
I mean, there's a benefit to it. Some people want to save money. Some people want to pay their houses off faster. So, I definitely, if you got a mortgage out there that's more than 4%, it's worth a conversation for sure. But
more than 4%, that's a conversation I didn't think we'd be having.
Yeah,
if you have more than 4%,
I've locked rates in at 2.75 in the past couple weeks on the 10s and 15s. Right now they're up a little bit because but you can find them. 3% on a 30-year fix. I just actually priced one out today. 3% on a 30-year fix. So yeah, and if you had your loan for 3 or 4 or 5 years, you've already paid some principal down. You probably got some equity growth in there. I mean, there's opportunities like crazy to save. It's and I don't recommend necessarily saving $50 or $100. I think it makes more sense to knock off 3, 4, or 5 years off the term.
Are they doing cash out refi still?
Oh yeah.
They're doing cash outs. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
if it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so let me bounce over for a second for some of the people on here that are not trying to get hard money. Maybe they're newer. Maybe they can't go to a bank and get the traditional lending, but they still want to play in the real estate game. What we're going to run across a lot of, I believe, are a lot of the out-of-town investors and people that have been buying properties. Because I sold a lot of cash people, but there's a lot of folks that are in California, Utah, Canada, different places. Let me scratch that. I'm not going to say Canada because those are more the cash players, but they're more the West Coast buyers. And they're financing houses in Cleveland. So they're going and buying a Parma double, and they have an $80,000 mortgage on it. They have a $40,000 mortgage, maybe a West Park double or something. So a lot of these people are calling, and they want to sell. They want out. They're having problems with the management company, or maybe they're just scared right now because the evictions aren't moving forward, and the evictions aren't going forward. So now they've got a couple of non-payers in there. I was just saying, I know that Angelo said that things are going pretty well over their management company, and other people are saying they're getting high. Then someone typed in here that they only had about 20% of their people paying from one of theirs. So then what we did is so you get these folks in here that they're not getting their rents. They're out in Cali. Now they're choking down extra payment. And they're like, forget it. I just need out of this thing. Write me a check for the $40,000. Get me out. And maybe we don't want to do that. We just say, hey, the money's going to still be a little bit tight. So we're going to do what's called a subject to deal or some sort of owner financing deal. Or Angelo or David, do one of you guys want to jump on that? And so how would you structure something like that with someone from Cali? Let's say they have a loan with Bank of America or with Wells Fargo, $40,000, and someone wants to take it over here in the Cleveland market. What would be a good way to structure it, Angelo?
Depending on the situation, if I'm the buyer, I just have them sign the deed over. Generally don't notify the bank and then just keep making the payments, get a power of attorney, make sure that I'm able to talk to the bank. But you have to make sure that it's correct and everything dotted or whatnot. If I'm ever representing a seller on these deals, I never let them do them. There's too many problems. If the buyer stops paying, you have no recourse. They're gonna come after you, and you have no way of even negotiating with the bank anymore because the title's not in your name. So it really depends on which side of the street you are. If you're the buyer, it's a great situation. You have all the power, all the control, just haven't signed it over. But you got to be careful. And 1099s at the end of the year for the interest can be a little bit tricky. So you have to make sure those are done correctly.
David?
I mean, I agree. Angelo, would you do you ever create like a land trust to put it in there so you don't have a lender that tries to claim a transfer of beneficial interest? It's few and far between, but I've had a few pop up over the years.
Except for special circumstances, I've never had a lender on a residential property give an issue. On a commercial property, we might do that, but I don't like creating the trusts. They just tend to make things confusing. It says you're going to hide, it seems like you're hiding things sometimes to a lender. but it all depends on the situation. I've done them that way as well, but I'm all for simpler.
Yeah,
We
I agree.
we actually next week we have Randy Hughes, Mr. Land Trust, going to be on here, and he's been doing it for 50 years. And I agree with you, Angelo. It does complicate things a little bit, but it also is probably it's a clean and complicated way to do it. Would that be a good way of describing it? It's a way that you can do it without initiating the due on sale clause, which we'll call the loan due, and that's usually caught in the insurance department. If I'm taking a subject to house from Mike and I'm putting myself on title, and all of a sudden I remove Mike as insured and add me as insured, that's where it gets caught that it's transferred. So a lot of ways to do that is just to add yourself as additional insured and then slowly remove him off there. But that's something that maybe next week we'll dive a little bit deeper into on the subject to stuff. But definitely something that's coming down the pipeline, I think, quite a bit here, especially during this little dip in the market. So
we did have a question on a subject too. Harshawn wants to know if you can do a subject to when the owner's behind on property taxes.
Well, yeah, you can do it. A subject to, the definition of subject to means you are taking that deed subject to all the garbage that's on it. So it's kind of like dating someone subject to all the diseases they carry. It's like, okay, so you have herpes and HIV and everything else, but we're still going to date. It sounds like a good idea. So no one's usually giving you something subject to that doesn't have a bunch of like junk on it. So bad example, I know. Did we lose anyone on that? Nope, still the same amount. It's a virus time. We can talk about. They have Corona, see? But the then we did there. So back taxes are cool because Cuyahoga County right now they're all on pause, but you can take the back taxes and drag them out over 24 months and do a payment plan. So it's kind of a cheap guaranteed loan that you can take over on these. But some of the back property taxes are, $20,000, $30,000. That gets pretty expensive to pay over 24 months. And you'll be in a negative cash flow position. Any other questions on there?
Not yet.
Zero did. Adam Zero, if you want to have a 30-second, and I say 30 seconds to Adam because, Andrew, because he gets winded like I do sometimes. 30 seconds, you want to talk about private lending real quick, and you can explain because you're you were on last week talking with Freeland Funding. If you want to just give us an update on that and where you went, if you're coming back, and what's going on with the market there.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys saw my post to everybody in the chat box, but Freeland Lending is closed. It's not just us. We tried to keep things going. We did have local funding. They're trying to close the last few of our deals that were in the pipeline, and they may still keep going, but very slowly and not dependably. So again, this is national. Private lending is on hold. The reason being is, nobody knows what's going to happen. So there's a lot of uncertainty among those that are holding the paper. And to be honest, with courthouses closed, you can't record mortgages and deeds, and therefore, you can't be assured to be holding title to the property.
Andrew, that's not true. The county recorder's office is still open. I recorded deeds today.
Okay, we had some that were taking like really long to actually record, many days. And so, that was causing uncertainty. As far as the lenders that we were brokering to, they said that was a concern among their investors about holding title, legally holding title. We expect things to come back in a couple months, but Freeland Lending may not resurrect as a company. I'll keep this short and just say that we're transferring our fix and flip money into buying assets. That's, a fund that's millions of dollars rich to buy cash. So you're going to be hearing back from me probably by next week with buying criteria to send us your deals, okay?
Hey, Andrew, just to add a little bit of clarity to that,
Sure,
I was actually on the phone with the owners today.
Okay.
And I think that what you just said, the way I heard it, I'm assuming others is it was made clear to me that Freeland's not out of business. They've just hit the pause. They've hit the pause button like most other lenders have.
Yeah.
But they're going to be fully committed to picking up to where they left off. Sure, there might be acquisition, strategies in play as well, but that's always been there. But they do want to continue to be a resource, for especially local investors in Ohio here just as this dust clears, they should be available again. So.
Okay, well, that's newer information than I got this morning. Good to know.
No, it's
yeah, good.
now. What about I know I have some people I'm working with on some other deals, and they were refinancing through you at the time, and they paid for appraisals. Are you going to forward the money back to them? Or are you going to forward to the appraisal and have it named to a different lender? Or how are you going to handle stuff like that?
Any money taken in deposits for appraisals that have not been completed or not been ordered and completed will be refunded. Credit pulls have already been spent if your credit was pulled. But as far as appraisals, we generally can't assign them, but if they can be assigned, they certainly will. But if they haven't been completed, contact Chris Hoffer directly at Freeland Lending for a refund. He's reaching out to all the borrowers. I got an email today about some deals, and there's a lengthy email about the process. So if you were in process in the pipeline, you should have gotten that email. If not, again, message me privately and we'll take it up.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Zebro. And, as Mr. Streeter said there, that Cuyahoga County is absolutely not closed. We're recording things. It's a little bit cumbersome, but still get recorded the same day. I understand that Freeland did some things more on a national level and so forth, so different counties have different things, but we're still rocking here in Cuyahoga County. There are still some private money lenders lending. There's still things going on, but absolutely has slowed down. There's no doubt about that. And the good way of putting it is the pause button being hit from Freeland and going to more acquisitions. That's a good way of putting it, because I think a lot of people are pausing to see what happens, but honestly, we're still buying, we're still selling. I mean, a contract came in while I've been on this call. I saw it flash up on my screen for one that we picked up over in the Tremont area here last night and finally got the contract back. So, things are still happening. I think we're just looking at them a little bit differently. As far as, I don't know who would we have on here that would really have a good opinion of appraisals on there. That may be to a Rich Bailey question, because looking at appraisals now from, I guess, pre-virus to current virus situation, I'm, for one, a little bit shaken out. Like there's houses you'll see that might have a $150,000 appraisal from maybe, 3 months ago. But would that house be worth $150,000 in today's market? So, Rich, how are we looking at appraisals during all this?
It really depends on the area, but I haven't had much problems. I had one. I'm doing a refinance for a young couple that I financed in 2018, and the appraisal came in a couple days ago, exactly what it appraised for then, and we're kind of fighting that. But there were some guidelines that came out as far as the virus goes, that they're actually going to allow some exterior onlys and things like that. So there's some leeway on some of the virus-related things, but that's going to be very short-lived, I'm sure.
Okay.
But as far as appraisal values go, I don't think it's going to have any effect.
Okay, awesome. So maybe I'm just being a little bit overly conservative on that. So let's jump over for a second and let's talk about contracting. Still getting jobs done, sending the contractors to lines, the bread lines at Home Depot, kind of like we're in old communist Russia. Now they have to stand in line to get 2x4s now. But is anyone having any issues or problems or anything with getting their rehabs done? Because me personally, what I'm finding is some of my best guys that I always loved using that are like my top-notch Amish guys or something that do the framing, roofing, siding, windows, and so forth, or my great concrete guys that I can get, like if I'm early in the spring or if I'm in the dead of winter, I can usually get them. But during their busy build season, they usually shun me, if you will. So, but a lot of those guys are coming back and saying, hey, Rob, I've got 45 days that my builder stopped. What do you have? Does anyone else have that same thing going on where they're getting some of their contractors freed up, or are you guys stopping doing work on your properties at this point? Nobody threw anything out there, so maybe no one's just doing anything much with it.
I'm finding a lot of contractors being free, showing up. They're working hard. They do good work. So
I spoke with a contractor today who was looking to start a flip he's had for a while because he didn't have the work. So he said, well, now's the time to do it, but now he needs the lending to do the flip and he can't. So he's kind of in that weird place.
But it might be an opportunity for people that have a couple bucks sitting around, or they have credit cards that they could jump in and partner with some of these folks that have the asset, that they don't have the funding to do it, but they're willing to put the work into it. They could do a co-op sort of deal with them, I would say.
Exactly.
What are we seeing, Mike, for building departments and code violations and so forth?
You talking to me?
Yeah, Mr. Ricky. What are you seeing as far as code violations, but just not Cleveland, but all across the board with point of sales, with everything going on? What are you seeing?
I haven't really seen much activity personally. You know, as far as the courts have pretty much stopped any hearings, they're not holding any type of criminal violation hearings that I'm aware of. I don't know if Dave, if you've seen any, but I personally have not seen any.
I mean, no code violation hearings, but they're still issuing tickets. And doing exterior inspections, nothing inside, but they're out there still writing tickets and violation notices, probably because they have nothing better to do. So,
yeah, we did get we had a couple people that were in some of the heights, the point of sale areas, and literally the inspector said, you know what, just take a picture of the work done and send it in, and we'll okay it off of that. So I'm not sure if that's going to be actually what they're all doing as a standard right now, or it's just a couple freaked out inspectors that really have no desire to come out there and take a chance on catching the virus to give you a problem. Yes.
Cleveland Heights is taking pictures for point of sale, and City of Cleveland, Metro, CMHA, Metro inspectors are taking pictures to clear also.
Really?
Within the last week or two.
Okay, so if you failed the CMHA inspection recently, then if you were missing a smoke detector or a handrail or whatever, they're accepting just a picture to clear that up. How
That's
about
correct.
handling, are there any holds right now on new inspections for Section 8 if someone was trying to get a Section 8 tenant in their property?
I don't have firsthand experience on it, but my understanding, based on the memos I've read, is that they will now inspect vacant properties.
We've had inspections done recently, and we're waiting on one. They're a lot slower than normal, and approvals take a lot longer. Where normally you're at about 10 business days. I think it took 3.5 weeks to get the approval after the inspection, just because I think they're short-staffed. Some people aren't going in. But we have another one that we're waiting for a scheduled inspection, and they said we're on the list. You'll get out there. But these are all vacant, and they're still working. It's just slow.
Yeah. Everything is just slowing way down. It's not necessarily coming to a grinding halt. I should have a title company on here as well. I don't know why we don't invite any of our title companies to be on with us, but maybe Angelo could also answer this. As we were talking about earlier about recording these deeds, when you're recording deeds, normally Ohio is a first in line type city. So you go in Collier County and you go to record it, and if someone comes behind me, they're second position, someone behind them is third position. And now, from what I understand, they're just dropping it all into a box, they're taking it in, and they're recording it. So the title insurance companies seem to be allowing that right now and still ensuring the deed is good. What do you see happening, Angelo? Do you see that could the title insurance stop this in their tracks recording stuff because they won't insure deeds?
They'll always insure it, and I know David could answer as well. He's had a lot of experience with title. But you always get a gap endorsement, so it covers the difference if something should happen. And it is on the title company. That's something that they know that they're going into, that if there's an issue. And that's why they have an affidavit signed by the seller to make sure that they did still own it. They didn't transfer it. No mechanic liens, a basic cover your behind type of form. So they can go after the seller if they do try and sell it to multiple people. But the gap insurance covers it. And I try and use the example like gap insurance on a new car that you buy. It loses value the day you drive it off the lot, and if you wreck it an hour after you got it, the insurance will only cover what the value is, which is a lot less than what you paid for it. So you need the gap insurance to cover that difference to make sure you can pay off the entire loan if you financed 100%. So you want gap insurance. Think of it from the cars the same way to the property.
Good advice. David, anything to add to that?
No, Angelo hit it right on the head. So as always, Angelo, right? Get your A game on.
I know we're hitting the lenders and attorneys pretty heavy on here right now because that's really where a lot of the questions need to be answered from legally and financially.
Hey, Rob,
So that, yes,
Rob,
sir.
I got a good story that just happened today. So you know
Yes.
how, buying a house at a sheriff's sale, sometimes you get an uncooperative squatter in there, maybe a previous owner or tenant.
Yeah.
So we had one guy bought it right before this all went down. Guy won't move out, served a 3-day for non-color of title. Wants to get in. He's got financing lined up that's actually ready to fund this, but they need an interior inspection and appraisal. So posted a 24-hour notice. He wouldn't let him in. Posted another 24-hour notice. Went to the police department to get the police escort because they normally do that to keep the peace.
Mhm.
The police will not do it because of COVID-19 concerns going into the property. So
Wow.
you have to just sit and wait. So
I was going to ask that. We actually just took title to one today, and the same thing. We have some non-paying tenants in there, and I know I can sell the thing if I can get someone through it. But I'm worried about the 24-hour notice. Like legally, like think of all of us right now. We're all sitting on this call, but how many people would be cool with saying, "Hey, I got a 24-hour notice. Someone can come walking through their house, the bank or landlord or whatever." I think we'd all freak out a little bit. So that's a scary story, man. That sounds about accurate. That the cops don't want to get involved with that stuff anymore.
I mentioned that Jill was asking about commercial appraisals. You might have that same issue if you need to get in for an appraisal, and the tenant's just like, "This isn't an emergency. I'm not going to let you in." And I think landlords do the same thing. You just want to have a crack painted or, a screen replaced. It's not an emergency. We're not going to have you, violate social distancing for something that's not life-threatening.
Is Jill Banner on here still? Is she still on there? I know she was on earlier. She was going to pop in and say something about what's going on right now.
No, I don't see her.
No, she popped in and popped in out and left. Alan, do you want to comment real quickly from Specialized IRA about do you see anyone now that they've changed the 401k guidelines where if you're with an employer you can actually take 100,000 out? Is anyone starting to roll that over to their solo 401k?
We're seeing quite a volume coming in because excuse me, especially with laid off people, that is a separation event. So now they do have access. No matter what their age is, they have access to the retirement funds. So we're in the process of setting up quite a few of those at the moment. And you were speaking earlier on subject 2. We do hold subject 2. Obviously, the titling is, a little more complex, but it's a great way to start a retirement plan and with little amount of money and make it grow quick, especially in these times.
Could you give me a 60-second little idea for the group here? If someone were going to pull 100,000, they got laid off from their job, they had 100,000 in their normal 401k, how they could roll that over and fund either an IRA or a solo? Yes.
Fund a Roth.
A Roth. Well, a Roth. Will they be? Just explain if it's pre or post dollars. Clearly, you can't do an IRA because it's going to max out the contribution allowances. But just explain if someone had 100 grand, they want to put it into a sheltered account, even being a Roth, how could they do that?
Sure, it's a matter of setting up the account, filling out the paperwork, the transfer paperwork, and then we set them up, whether it's Roth, whether it's 401k. You can take a loan on the 401k up to $100,000. The other, let's say you have a Roth, don't recommend doing it only because you tend not to pay it back when you're not forced to, but they've extended the limit of 60 days. They've bumped that out further. That's not a recommendation to take and go and invest in something unless you know you're going to get a quick return. But the 401k, the loan, they bumped it up to 100,000, and you got 5 years to pay that back.
Okay, so in a solo 401k, and we can actually have a longer conversation. Maybe we'll do this as a speaking here, maybe one of our upcoming webinars. That if someone's talking about the subject 2, someone's going to deed you a house, and you may be giving them $1,000 for their deed, and you're taking the subject 2. You can put that into a solo 401k and not have UBIT tax or anything. And then when you go to resell it or collect the rents or the spread, you can rapidly grow your retirement account tax-free.
Yes, definitely. That's an awesome way to grow it. And that UBIT tax, some people are comfortable with it outside of a 401k because the percentages are cheaper than they would otherwise. But avoiding that UBIT tax is a great thing with the 401k.
Okay, that can maybe be a separate conversation that we can have on that. So, okay, let's do this real quick. If you could, Aaron, please take the link for the Facebook page, and will you drop that into the Zoom chat there for anyone that hasn't jumped on the Facebook yet?
And we do have a couple questions from
okay.
Jedi. He wanted to know, let me put, do you see any appraisals being the same on commercial properties, or are those changing? And then are there any issues getting inspections done while on lockdown?
I would say, just like David said, it's hard to force your way into somebody's house right now. I mean, with COVID-19 going on and so forth. Appraisers, it's who's comfortable with going out, who's not. I just had a couple appraisals done, and they got done. My guy's not afraid. He is, no fear in doing it. So I think it's just case-by-case basis. Someone can get in or not, but you're not going to force your way into much of anything right now.
Yeah, I've run into that issue with signing up deals. Is I was supposed to go look at an 8-unit, actually Jen Woomer's on this call, and it's one of hers, and the tenants said it's not an emergency, I don't want to show my unit. And it's that same thing that, everything's slowed down, even signing up deals. It's kind of an issue trying to get into people's houses. I'm doing all of that. Bob wants to know if any discounts are being offered to tenants for April.
I've called all Bob's tenants and said, yes, 90% off. No, it's that's really a case-by-case basis of what you plan on doing. Me personally, I would probably, if you were in an apartment building or a double, if you have a 2-unit, I would offer the same to both people. Don't start offering one thing, one another thing. I wouldn't start out by offering anything. I would just try to get it, because remember, the government checks are going to be coming out as well. You might have them post-date a check for you or do something of that nature to hold until they get their government check coming. Which
you offer stuff, you want to make sure that you have the consistent criteria of how you're doing it.
We waited until today, where the grace period was up, and then started offering 10% discount with some caveats.
A lot of feedback I've gotten is that tenants are kind of putting feelers out too. They're calling and saying, what are you going to do about my rent? Well, not going to do anything about your rent. Rent is due, but they're trying to see if there's anything that they can get, if they can get those discounts and things like that. So sometimes it might even just be a feeler, but in order to get them all, like if you were going to tell that guy 10%, got to be across the board then. But sometimes I just think that they're searching.
I do want to throw one thing out there, because of it, it's kind of a stale market right now, and most tenants aren't moving in or moving out unless they have to, and some of us are sitting on vacancies right now. I don't know if we have Joan on here or not, but Joan from First Security, if she wants to unmute, she saved us. We've actually had vacancies in the past and vacant houses, and they've gotten beat up, stripped, things stolen out of them and so forth, and she has a way around that. Joan, what would you do if someone has a vacancy right now? Are you still going out in the houses and setting up security, and how does that work? In about a 30-second little idea.
Yep. Absolutely. We are going into the vacant properties. The only thing I will ask for my guys is to make sure there's not other trades there, but actually that has been still very consistent, and a lot of people have added on the past couple weeks. I was really surprised. We'll go in, we'll put the portable security system in the vacant property. You can do it while the property's sitting over the next couple months, if that what happens, or if you can do it right when you put your mechanicals in. But we have plenty of the portables to go around. So feel free to reach out to me.
Let me ask you a question. Do you need internet to make that work?
No.
Do you know electricity?
Yeah, no, you don't have to have electricity. You can have purchase a truck battery, but then you are responsible for changing that. And they generally last about every 2 weeks. They have to be changed. So it's ideal if you can get electricity if you know it's coming on, but I don't know if they're behind turning that on or not either for people.
Okay, and what about if let's say, okay, you have this security system in, someone comes and kicks in your front door, back door, whatever. What happens next? Are they dispatching police? Are they texting me? What's happening?
They're dispatching police as well as texting you. So you can be set up for an SMS text option, where you can receive a text if the power goes out, if the bird goes off, opening and closing, so you know if somebody's going in or out, and a low battery. So if one of your workers were there and left the bucket unplugged, purposely or not purposely, you'll get notification that it's unplugged. Then we also have another option now. I know a couple guys have it. We're an alarm.com dealer, so you can go ahead and turn the system on and off from your phone. So you don't necessarily have to leave a key fob there. That's something we rolled out the past couple months. And I know a couple people have them in the group.
Awesome. Thanks so much, whoever's phone's on.
Thank you.
So I will say, I want to mention this, that I see a message here that that Angelo had thrown up there that makes complete sense, is be careful when you're negotiating with your tenants about discrimination. And what you got, it's none of us intend on discriminating ever, ever, ever. Well, I'm not saying nobody does, but I don't, and most of us don't. But it can be construed as discrimination. So it doesn't matter if you're black, white, gay, straight, man, woman, tall, short, young, old, whatever it is. Keep it all the same, because you don't want to say, hey, Betty is 75. I'm going to cut her a better break. But then Joe is 31. I'm not going to cut him a break. Everyone has an angle right now to lawyer up and come after you, especially if you own a bunch of properties. You just don't want that kind of heat. So make sure you're documenting what you're doing and you're making a standardized sheet across the board what you're offering people, and not playing let's make a deal. And if you are making a deal, make sure that it's a pretty equal deal. Any attorneys want to?
For that too. If you guys have not taken a civil rights class somewhere along the way, you should, because you would be amazed sitting through those classes how little rights you have as a property owner. And all they have to do is call them the civil rights. And I went through it. They fined me a bunch of money because I didn't allow a dog one time, a service animal. And it was a rough circumstance. I'm sure some people have had experience too, but definitely recommend getting a civil rights class and understanding really what your rights, how little rights you have as a property owner.
Hey, Rich, did you let him bring his white cane with the red tip in, or just not his dog? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it was a mystery call. They actually mystery called me on an ad I had that had no pets, and the lady says, my husband's got a service animal, blah blah blah. And I'm like, it's a triplex. I really can't have any animals. Everybody smells it. Everybody hears it, you know. And so 6 months later, I get a letter. And ironically, that same week, I had rented that same apartment out to a young man with a service animal. So, and they didn't matter. They wanted to fine me up to $6,000 for that. I negotiated it down to $1,000, and they had to take that civil rights class, which was really a good class actually, at the civil rights office.
Wow.
Yeah, just to chime in on that, it's a good point by Rich, but the fact that Angelo and I had some discussions about this for a while, that we think that this is probably going to be another wave of issues coming up with tenants as far as discrimination and how they were treated. So clearly be consistent and non-discriminatory in how you handle those things. And what I was going to mention is just what Rich is talking about. It's a claim or a charge that's being filed with the Ohio Civil Rights Commission. And those can be a pain in your butt, as I'm sure Rich has experienced, and problematic too, as we're working with a client right now that had no idea, but using his property software of AppFolio was asking questions about, family relationships. And he's now subject to an OCRC charge right now. So be careful. If you have any questions about that, feel free to call our office about that information.
Also, it might be a good idea to just write down your procedures, document written procedures on how you're handling and what you're presenting to tenants, so you have something to fall back on if they do, if you do catch a call or a letter.
Yeah, great advice.
Better to prepare it now instead of after the fact. Good idea, Dave.
Oh, absolutely. Is Eli Torres on this call? Is Eli on here? One of our members? All right. He's got a great story about this too. It's a very funny one. So maybe next week I'll have him tell that, now that we've scared everybody this week. But again, none of this stuff's to scare everyone. This is just all legit stuff that can really happen. And there's a lot of money to be made in this business, a lot of buying, a lot of selling, a lot of renting, things that we do every single day. But there's just a few of those little pitfalls that unfortunately we are all sharing with you, not because we read about them somewhere, because one of us has probably gone through them at some time. And I was like Rich with his service animal there. There's nowhere in a book you're probably going to read that, but then talking to Rich, you're going to hear all about it. So real quick, anyone that has any properties that they want to buy, sell, swap, trade, do anything, we can bring some of those on right now if you'd like, if you want to throw them up there. And then Aaron can pull you on. You can just throw them into the Zoom group chat. Also, there's the Facebook link on there. You can go on to that Facebook link and you can post them. I would not post a full address on Facebook because people will snag it and start marketing it. So if anyone has anything that's going on there, does anyone want to sell anything right now?
We have a 4-pack in Slavic Village, but it basically has about 24 hours left on it. It's actually probably 4 of the nicest houses I've seen in Slavic Village, bringing in $3,700 a month total. But that was actually the deal that it was funded, and then the guy just didn't meet that credit score anymore. So it came back to us, but the seller is a little bit annoyed. So I don't think we have very much time on it. It's a pretty solid deal. We're only asking 108 for all of them. But yeah, but there's literally 24 hours left on it. So if you want that information, you can email me, CLE Home Investments, and I can send that over your way.
We have some east side properties and some west side properties. Some are fixers uppers, some are rented. Some are in redevelopment zones, and some are in not some redevelopment zones, we'll call them. Any rate, financing available on some of them, or we can sell them cheaper for cash. You can call me. My number's here on the screen at 330-635-9717. So we also have someone here who's looking for multifamilies in Cuyahoga County for sale. I do have some multifamilies. I'm really looking for someone that's either going to buy it themselves or they're direct to their buyer. I'm not looking to take any of our properties and just drop them out on an email list. I have a big email list. So I'm looking for someone that's going to be a direct buyer or connection to a direct buyer.
Mike has one on East 163rd if he wants to talk about that real fast.
Yeah, I might unmute him.
I did. Mike, can you hear us?
Yeah, hi, it's Mike. Yeah,
Hey.
so I have it's a 3-1, and it's actually currently occupied at $800 in rent. And so, yeah, if anybody wants to, we have it listed at or selling at 58,000. So yeah, just email me, drop me an email if you want to learn more, and we can talk. Thanks.
Cool, Mike. You can throw that on the Facebook page as well if you'd like.
For sure.
Okay, we just have a couple minutes here left. Aaron, you want to take us out here and let us know what's coming up next week, and get everyone on the Facebook page and sign us out?
Yeah, sure. All right, guys. So next week, as we mentioned a little bit before, we have Randy Hughes, who is the land trust guy, coming and talking about land trust and all the information we need to know about there. That's not something that we really talk about often, so it's a really cool topic, and I would definitely recommend everyone chime in. And then, as usual, any changes that would arise, in the next week, as far as COVID goes and how it's affecting us, and any, target points that we need to talk about, if it's directed to lending or something like that, we'll definitely talk about. Remember, the website is CORE, Cleveland, Ohio Real Estate, and it's part of the Greater Cleveland REIA. I posted the link in the chat, but I will do it again just so it's right on the bottom. And then 6 p.m. on Tuesdays, we're going to be right here. And if you have any topics of conversation that maybe you really want to know more about, anything that is really on the top of your head, questions that you might have, let us know. Maybe we can try to target that in one of our next meetings, because we're here to try and educate and give you as much information as we can. So other than that, we will see you guys next Tuesday at 6 p.m., same place, same time.
Thanks, everyone. Look at that. What are we at? 7 o'clock exactly. 1 hour. We kept our promise. Thanks, guys. Have a safe week.
Bye.
See y'all.
Bye.
So